One is getting out of this, I'm a good person if I do things, I'm a bad person if I don't. If I can get out of that and just see my broken word as an open loop to close.
Welcome to Season 2 of Leadership Impact, the podcast for modern executives who are reinventing leadership within their organizations. With your host, Executive Leadership Coach and CEO of the Granger Network, Kari Granger, and me, Paul Adams, CEO of Sound Financial Group. This season focuses on accountability, and to support you in increasing accountability in yourself and in those you lead, we're providing a special rate for our listeners who want to engage in one of our accountability courses. Text the word accountability to 555-888 for more information. This is episode 22, how to mess up and actually improve your relationships.
Welcome back to Leadership Impact. Today, we're going to look at how to improve your relationships when you mess up. That's right, how to mess up and actually improve your relationships. Because, Paul, we all mess up. We all mess up.
Some of us more than others.
I mean, look, we miss meetings. We, don't do what we said we were going to do. We don't go to the party that we promised. We forget people's birthdays. We say things we don't mean to say. We're jerks. I don't know. What else? We don't have the money we promised.
All of the above.
All the above. We show up like a cranky person when we don't, and then get it all over everyone.
And on top of it, we then make all of the messing up mean something about us usually.
Yeah.
That's negative.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what did we learn when we were kids? If you mess up, you're going to be in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah. Very few of us had extremely enlightened parents who were like, oh, you messed up. Okay, let's just accept that. Let's honor your word around that. I mean, it's just not what happens for most of us.
Nope. You're not being a good boy or a good girl.
I think that's
usually how it goes.
And I think that's kind of the root of why we kind of suck at recovering when we mess up. And we often let these awesome opportunities for taking our relationships to the next level, whether that's like a client or colleague or family or spouse, there's these mess ups are like these great opportunities to elevate our relationships, and we just let them go by while we're hiding out in shame and or righteousness or guilt or whatever in the corner.
In one particular case I can think of somebody messing up was me having a meeting with you and your husband.
That's right. I was going to bring it up like my financial advisor missed a call, but let's just throw it out there and let everybody know it was us.
Well, and so what had happened was we had a meeting scheduled and I missed it. Very rare for me to do. It hurt a lot because it hurts worse to miss something in your calendar that's with somebody that you know, love, and respect, which I certainly feel that way about Kari and her husband. And I just immediately was distraught that it even happened. And maybe would it work? Have you share what your end of the communication was for after I found out?
My end of the communication. Oh, we were actually on the call. When we found out he wasn't showing up, we were on the call with one of his colleagues who was not prepared to do the call without Paul because Paul was supposed to do what he was supposed to do, right? So we sat there and it was a little embarrassing, right? Because we're like, where's Paul? And nobody knows where Paul is, right? And I was really happy it happened with me because I know it doesn't happen ever with you. So I was like, oh, good. There's some grace with me. But here's what happened, right? So we said, well, and your colleague was actually awesome. He was like, okay, how do we change and make this a valuable call for you? And, at one point we just decided to call it and reschedule. Now, we had been put out a bit in this call because we had really, taken time off work, all of that. And we were a little put out by it. But then here's what happened. Immediately, as soon as Paul found out, we got, a text, we got an email. Look, I'm sorry, guys. this was my fault. I know that I promised to be here. I wasn't there. And I'm happy to do a call on the weekend because, we like the weekends. Paul works during the week, but he just offered that. Okay, so that was good. That was pretty good. That's a good professional way to respond. Then about a week later, we get a card in the mail that's deeply personal. It has, acknowledges us as clients and how our relationship is meaningful to him. And included is this gift card. It's a small amount, but it was incredibly generous and thoughtful to our favorite local restaurant to talk about our future and what we care about in the future and, just to really create together, because that was really the purpose of our meeting with Paul is what's the future and are you financially set up for that? I can't tell you, we were so delighted. My husband's always been a fan of yours and things like that, but he's pretty even keel about people. And when we got that card in the mail, he was like, man, that's amazing. That's so unexpected. And our relationship with you actually elevated. We felt so taken care of, so acknowledged. You addressed the thing that was most important to us about our relationship with you, which is what's our future and does the finances support that? And I think if you had never messed up, our relationship wouldn't be as elevated as when you did mess up and you handled it the way you handled it.
Well, thank you for your grace, Kari. And that actually came out of a course that I took that you were teaching alongside Werner Erhard, Michael Jensen, and Steve Zaffron, like years and years ago where we first met, that really gave me this idea that back in 1990, there was a study done in the hotel industry that dealt with the fact, it was written by Bittner, Booms, and Trenault, but they dealt with the fact that 23% of the time when people mess up, they can actually end up with better reviews, even if the breakdown in the hotel business was literally around their core offering. Like I couldn't get a room, couldn't get food to my room, something they should have had cold, that when that went wrong, they still had better customer service outcomes if they resolved it in a way that was meaningful to the customer. And they got better reviews than when they delivered their core services exactly as they were supposed to.
I mean, is that crazy or what?
It's totally crazy.
And, I talk about this in our online accountability course, just to that point. My husband and I went to a, bed and breakfast, and we arrived really late at night, and it's exactly this example. It's in the service industry and no running water. I mean, toilets couldn't flush, we couldn't have water, like nothing. And, they offered, okay, well, let's move you. We did not want to move. It was so late at night, and instead they brought by buckets of water and a glass of wine, or not a glass, a whole bottle of wine, like really good wine. And we were in Oregon and wine country. So we left like, oh my God, we gave them 5-star reviews. When we showed up to no running water, we gave them 5-star reviews. I mean, it's insane.
You went from staying in a hotel to basically a fancy tent.
A fancy tent, and we were paying for the fancy tent more than the hotel room, right? And they ended up with 5-star reviews because of a couple things. So they messed up, they fessed up, then they leveled up. And that's what I think them and you and the studies all have in common. When you mess up, immediately fessing up, right? Not like trying to point the finger or, give all the explanations. My God, how many explanations do we have to endure from people who mess up? Just fess up. Yeah.
Ooh, and I would offer that they often give reasons or excuses as if that's what should let them off the hook, instead of them needing to level up, like deal with the costs they created for somebody.
Yeah. So what is leveling up? So first is fessing up. Then what is leveling up? Well, what will you do? And not just what will you do, but level up. Like how can you address the fundamental cares of what people are counting on you for? So, in the bed and breakfast example, my husband and I were going to have a really great romantic weekend together. So they didn't just say, oh, we messed up, so here's a couple buckets of water. They thought about, well, why would this couple be in this romantic cabin? Probably because they want to have a romantic weekend. So they brought wine. It was like And for you, you fessed up and then you said, okay, I'll do the call on a weekend if you'd like. But then you leveled up. You looked to see, well, what's the fundamental care that this call was designed to fulfill on? Well, Kari and Matt's, future and to ensure that they're financially set up to have the future they dream about. So let me give them some time to actually talk about that and be together and to create that future. So you mess up, which we all do. Let's stop being afraid of messing up because we all mess up, and stop pretending that we don't mess up. But then what do we do about it? We fess up and we level up.
And I think that when you own the mess up, like we're not bad human beings, we're not awful business professionals, none of that. As soon as we let that go, and then that's the fessing up. It allows us to just say, I am sorry. That was my responsibility. And I didn't get it done, whatever it was. This could be a client situation. It could be an inter-office situation. But I think just those two, now we're taking all the spotlight off of us. Because what do most of the times we do? We're trying to come up with the reasons, excuses, whatever it is. And there might be quote unquote good reasons. But non-delivering the thing plus a reason does not equal results. But people sort of treat it like it does.
Yeah, as if it replaces results.
Yep. And so I think when we immediately take that off the table, we mess up, we fess up, then it gives us the chance. We're not thinking about, what could make the reason, what could do this, what could do that. Instead, I think it turns us to the concerns of the other person. It lets us actually think about them, because if we're still trying to come up with a reason, excuse, whatever else, we're only thinking of ourselves.
Yeah, good point.
But we can turn and look at their concerns and attempt to care for them, which then, like, the leveling up is going to be different in every single situation.
Boy, I love it. It really has me get that our mess ups are an opportunity to connect with and address the fundamental cares of the people we're connected with. And, if that's not foundational to leadership in our lives, I don't know what is. And it actually generates, by the way, more trust, which is crazy, because all these, mess ups are really a function of us not keeping our word in some way, right? Either we're not fulfilling on our promises, something we promise people, or, just who we put ourselves out there to be. Right. So, if all of a sudden I'm being just a total jerk, I had an example where we're producing this online course, and, and I love our producers. Oh my God, they're amazing. So, the Bartery, I'll just give them a shout out. And I just came to one of the calls and I was so cranky, and, it was like a dragon slayer, except they weren't dragons. They were like really nice. I was going to say kittens, except they are not young. They're very thoughtful experts, right? But I was just like slashing and burning everywhere I went. And after I got off the call, I went, oh my God, I was such a jerk. Like, you should have seen everybody's face, right? They were like, okay, just don't say anything. Get off this call as soon as possible. And in that way, I really messed up, right? So again, that's kind of my, who I portray myself as. So in that way, I messed up, I fessed up. And I checked to try to level up, right? I say I try because I offered a few things and they were like, no, it's good, man. You just acknowledging that totally helped, right? And elevated our relationship. And in that, we create more trust. So how counterintuitive is it that I break my promise and I can create more trust? Don't I create trust by keeping my promise? How does that happen?
Well, think about it. You do what you said you would do, whatever the transaction was, be somewhere at a certain time, deliver a report, act a certain way, and you don't. The simple act of fully owning it already separates us from 90% of other people and shows that we care more about in some ways, we may be caring more about what they care about than the other person who just did the thing they said they were going to do because they were just executing. But now here we are in the midst of a breakdown, putting ourselves on the line by saying it was a mistake, and then saying it was our mistake, and then either leveling up by anticipating something, like the card and the gift card for you and your husband, or in your case, you just gave inquiring about what was the impact of this and what can I do to fix it.
What I just realized as you were speaking? I think one of the key parts in here, there's two key parts. One is getting out of this, I'm a good person if I do things, I'm a bad person if I don't. Mm-hmm. If I can get out of that and just see my broken word as an open loop to close.
Yes.
That's one piece of it, right? And then the other piece of it, I think there's a tinge of capacity to be vulnerable. So if we open ourselves up to say, hey, I screwed up there, a lot of us aren't trained to do that and maintain our own power. And those of us who have learned how to acknowledge I messed up and then level up around it have learned that it only increases our sense of self and our power. But what's required is the capacity to be vulnerable in that moment without going into I'm a bad person. So how can I be vulnerable, apologize without the energy of, man, I just suck as a person. I'm so sorry, which is another way of trying to, you said excuses make up for the result. Sometimes we think if we're like really sincere about how bad we feel, that also makes up for the result. And neither do.
And I feel terrible and going too deep down that road, you're actually creating a burden shift back to the other person. Like now, not only do they have the cost of the thing that happened, but now they got to make you feel better about yourself. Oh my God.
Right. So the best thing to do is mess up, fess up, level up, and maintain your own sense of self. And just know, boy, everybody messes up. You're not excluded. Don't go into I'm a bad person because that's just annoying when you do it. I promise you. It's just annoying. So just, create completion by leveling up around it. Address those fundamental cares.
Kari, I just love this topic today. I hope everybody listening is able to take that away. I just got to say it again because I love the distinction. If you mess up, fess up immediately and level up as soon as you can. And if all of us can begin to think about what does it mean when there's some kind of breakdown and how did we impact somebody else's concerns, we get in their shoes, we get to understand how the world is occurring for them, maybe better than before the breakdown, and then get a chance to deepen the relationship by caring for those concerns in a way that allows them to feel like that loop was completed for them, and perhaps you have more trust after having done something that would otherwise break trust than you would have if you'd have just done what you said to start with.
How to mess up and actually improve your relationships.
Kari, this was great once again, and I hope for all of our listeners, this has been a contribution to your leadership impact. Thank you for tuning into Leadership Impact, the podcast for modern executives who are reinventing leadership within their organizations. Subscribe now at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to support you in your leadership impact, we've offered a special course rate to you, our listeners. Just text the word accountability to 555-888 and you'll receive the link. Learn more at grangerNetwork.com and join us next week on how to transform your leadership impact with accountability.